For an athlete, think about it as you still have your resting metabolic rate. It's what you burn if you didn't move at all.
Yeah.
Now our runners are creating such a higher amount of movement per day.
What are some signs of hunger that are not conventional?
What's been your experience with foods that you've added or eliminated impacting your runs?
As an athlete, when you're burning more, should those extra calories come from protein, carbs, fats, everything? So if you don't know me, I'm Caroline, and I used to sail competitively for 12 years before I signed up for my first marathon, the Bergen Marathon, and very unexpectedly won it running a 3:05. And then I hired a coach and I ran my second marathon, the Florence Marathon, and ran a 2:46. And I just jumped straight into marathon training. And after that, I suffered from 6 bone stress injuries, and I basically just made all the mistakes. And I really started this channel because I just want to share everything that I've learned about the sport with all of you guys. I'm also a marathon coach, so I'll leave my one-on-one coaching link below. And I also have 3 different marathon training plans depending on your level. So for my training plans, I'd say the biggest difference between other training plans that I've seen is that I have a very clear who is this for section. So you can just go onto the website and see how much running you're doing, and therefore if the plan is right for you.
Hi girls. Come on in, come on in. Hey. Mika, Bella.
Oh.
Hi girls. I missed you.
I've gotten a lot of questions about snacking. So runners will ask me, they'll say that they snack a lot, and that's a question I'm very curious about. Why does this seem to be a common thing with runners that they're always snacking?
This is a great question. I think in the scheme of nutrition, when we're talking about a non-athlete, general population, we have what we call our resting metabolism, what our body burns at rest. And that's something we can actually test for at Dexa Body, is finding out what someone's burning when they're not moving at all. Now, for most of us, depending on our lifestyle, if we're not an athlete, we are going to a job. We're working on a screen some of the day. Maybe we're going and running errands. We're doing some cooking. We are moving. And so all of a sudden, we're above our resting metabolic rate. We've now burned additional calories moving during the day. And so in a day, a typical individual, they might eat 3 meals a day, might have a snack somewhere in there, but their body's not going to feel like it didn't get what it needed through those 3 meals. For the most part, they feel pretty covered on that 3-meal structure. For an athlete, think about it as you still have your resting metabolic rate. It's what you burn if you didn't move at all.
Yeah.
Now our runners are creating such a higher amount of movement per day. They're generating all this extra energy that they've now burned. And so 3 meals a day may not sustain them because their needs are so much greater. They can still eat those 3 meals, but likely what they'll experience and feel and along the lines of those hunger cues is, oh man, I burned so much energy, I've got to replenish it, and that might happen at a more frequent rate than the average person.
Yeah.
So if a runner feels like they're snacking all the time, they're working to get to that amount that they burned in the form of food. That may happen more frequently than the average person. And so it's very common after those 3 meals that they may have as a basic structure to be snacking before runs, after runs, before bed. You've got to make up that balance in some ways. And so I think runners are feeling that effect when they're snacking all day.
Yeah. And then one of the things I've noticed is, because you might just say, can't you just eat a larger meal? But the thing is that, again, it comes back to this like fullness. You can sit down and you're trying to eat that larger meal. But if I were to replenish everything that I just burned in that meal, it's gonna be like a lot of food to digest, and I will feel full before that. So then typically what happens is that you will maybe eat a little smaller meal. It's not small, it's bigger than a normal person's meal. But then because you haven't still replenished everything, that's when you're needing that extra snack.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. And even to that, to comment on top of that, a larger meal, same with what we would eat pre or post run, our body can only utilize so much at a time. Because digestion is such an intricate process, while throwing more into that system at one time doesn't necessarily benefit us the way that very controlled size meals with more intake around those meals, our body can utilize that as a daily plan much better. because of the control of portion size that we're limiting ourselves to. So definitely preferred.
What about, do we also have an increased metabolism after the run?
Different than the rest of your day? Good question.
Why we're getting like hungrier.
Think of it as, yes, after an effort, depending on the athlete, they may be hungry immediately after the effort or not. Is your metabolism changing because that effort just ended? Not necessarily, but think of our athletes as, in general, depending on the sport, a higher degree of lean tissue than the average person. And when we carry more lean tissue on our frame, our body actually burns, to keep that muscle tissue on our frame, it burns 3 times as many calories to maintain that tissue type than it does fat tissue. So for most of our athletes, you guys are carrying more lean tissue. You might be a leaner individual because of your lifestyle, because of your job and what you're doing effort-wise. And so all of a sudden, your metabolism's higher all day long because of all that lean tissue you have. And you're consistently burning calories through your efforts in exercise. So it's a combination, of increased metabolism overall because you carry more lean tissue than the average person, as well as increased cravings because I burn so much more calories than the average person might in that day.
So interesting. I find
I
find nutrition so fun. If I were to study something new, it would definitely be nutrition.
And you're around it. You're learning a lot from us, and it's not gonna leave you. You only get better at it.
What are some signs of hunger that are not conventional?
This is a wonderful question. For a lot of my athletes, hunger doesn't always feel like I need to intake food. It can show up in other areas. And so some of the main ones we see in athletes who are under fueling or are hungry, we may see lack of cognitive focus. So a little less ability to focus, fatigue, and irritability. Our underfueling can come out in our mood, and some of the ways that happens most frequently, the irritability will show. What's the best way to phrase it? It would come through in irritability. It could come through in mood swings, quick changing of mood, as well as some experiences of depression. Symptoms of depression can come through from underfueling. So mood's a big one. Aside from that, we can actually have poorer sleep quality because of underfueling. So someone's inability to fall asleep as they normally would, more frequent interrupted sleep, and even when they wake up, feeling fatigued right at the start of their day. These can be signs of hunger or underfueling that you wouldn't normally think of. For my females, we would get cues potentially of either an irregular or a ceased menstrual cycle. So if it's irregular or stopped, we would know some hunger, not necessarily hunger, but underfueling is at play as well. And then, of course, it can show in our performance. In training, you would understand hunger in the form of underfueling coming out in the sense of not being able to perform at the same durations or efforts, not feeling motivated to start the training. And then 2, not having the same, even at a longer duration of training, not seeing the same adaptations. We're performing at a lower rate because of that underfueling or hunger as well. Some of the main ones we see from our athletes come in those areas. But I'm curious what you've experienced in the line of unconventional hunger yourself.
All the things. I feel like I have a lot of experiences to share on this. First of all, Oscar can definitely relate to me being in like a mood. And I always tell him if I'm in a mood, like give me food and then we can talk about it. Because like very often it's related to food. And what's interesting about this is that I think most people who know me as a person who's like always eating. Like at home, like I'm always eating. I'm always eating more than my family. Like I'm always eating even like more than Oscar, and he's like double my size. Like it's frequent. So it's not to be confused with that you're not eating. I feel like very often people talk about, when you're under eating, and you can very much be eating all the time and under eating. And I think that that's an important point to get across, because for me that was a point, or that was a case, and it's not necessarily even on purpose. I wouldn't even. I have never been intentionally like when I first started getting into running and I was eating, I wasn't trying to be in a deficit. Like I wasn't trying to be, I already thought I was like too skinny. And as I was starting to run more, that was one of my biggest fears, that I was going to become even skinnier. So I was like constantly trying to eat a lot and even trying to eat unhealthy foods because I was like, it's higher in calories. Yet I was under eating. And this was because, for me at least, this was because I didn't have the knowledge about how much food it took. And then I think for me, focusing on the eating high calorie dense foods, that was like, my body needed proper fuel to recover. So like I was hungry all the time, but I wasn't hungry also in the typical way of being hungry. My stomach was never rumbling. Like I feel like, I struggled with focus. I struggled with focus. I was more irritable. I didn't see my performance really decline because I don't think I was under eating like to that extent. But what I realized is that as I'm eating more nutritious foods, whole foods, that fills me up. So my stomach will feel full. But I've learned what those signs look like for me, and it probably varies a little bit, but I'll feel it a little bit in my head. I have this feeling in my head, and then, also people say drink water, and water is very important. But now I just know that feeling. And I think for me, that's been a huge win, to be able to feel it on my body when I'm in that deficit and when I'm not. And then especially focusing on not being in that deficit as I'm having a high training load, because that's when I'm not going to need an extra stress from being in a deficit.
Oh, for sure.
So, and then it's not like eliminating the whole foods, but it's been having those whole foods, but then also including quicker digestible carbs, like pasta, or I love like English muffin with this Norwegian Nutella that's called Nugatti.
There's a place for all of it, right? Understanding when to have it, what those hunger cues are telling you. And now you know when those hunger cues happen, if they've stopped or if they start again. These are the types of foods that I know will fuel me better. And you know those feelings. And not to say when your training changes or lengthens, we may find out if that deficit gets to a point where you do start to feel some of those symptoms come back. You can always adjust nutrition in that way. But I'm glad for you. It sounds like, have some of them resolved, or do you still experience the mood to the degree?
I've found that it's very easy to be in a deficit if I'm not conscious of planning my nutrition. Sometimes I'll be like, it's okay. Like, I'll just go with the flow. Like, if I just go with the flow when I'm with friends, I'm like, it should be fine. But really, it's not. Like, when I go with the flow with a lot of my friends, I just feel like we're eating so seldom. So I need to plan ahead. Especially if I'm eating out, I feel like it can be harder to get protein. Having some, like, whether it's our protein muffins or protein shake, or it doesn't have to be like perfect. Like sometimes it's just like that annoying shake that doesn't taste as good, but it'll do the job. Bringing some like apples, bringing some nuts. Meal prepping.
Having that plan and variety of foods that you know your body's going to use is one thing, and then it doesn't mean you have to eliminate those occasions with friends, but having that plan and having those foods already in the system. Then, okay, if I'm still hungry and I have some budgeted room, I'm out with friends and I know I already got the things that my body's needing, then there's time and space for all of it. But you're right, with the go with the flow and not making that plan, we're not really sure what these foods that I'm eating out are giving me, and am I getting the quality that my body could use, getting that in first, and then saying, all right, now that all that's covered, I can have the social event, or I can have the extra added piece that I want.
I think then that's on top of other things that I'm doing. It's not like because I'm gonna go eat out with friends, then I'm eating less, like earlier in the day, or if you see what I'm saying, like instead, then if I'm not as hungry later on in the day, then I'll just eat less. And also not worrying about what other people think, right? Like thinking that, oh, do they think that I don't eat that much?
Yeah.
Right? And because sometimes I think that you can get caught up on those type of things, but then knowing with myself that I am eating what my body is needing, but I am also focusing on eating it at the right time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Having that plan in place, I think, makes those decisions and those stresses a little lighter on us.
Yeah.
Because we know our body's going to react well to it.
Yeah.
The more we can get habitual with that,
Yeah.
the easier it becomes on us.
Yeah. And also everyone's different. So how I'm training is very different from most people.
Yeah.
And then other people are training in a different way. Our bodies are different, like our genetics are different. So it's okay that we're doing things in a different way. Like
Absolutely.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. I think that's a huge point to make, and one that I'm glad that you're putting out there to people that are watching this. Everyone's plan is going to look different.
Yeah.
Let go with the flow. It's not to say that it won't treat you well, but if you want to take it to the next step, if you want to feel the best in your training, having that plan is essential. It becomes very custom and set for you, and it should be different than the person next to you or your friend who's training for something else.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As an athlete, when you're burning more, should those extra calories come from protein, carbs, fats, everything? How to go around that?
The method. Madness.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I love the questions you asked, because you were very meticulous about teaching someone who's going to watch this video, what would I want to intake before a run or exercise, and then after a run or exercise. But then if we broaden that question to what should I eat overall, how would an individual find this out? Well, should it come from protein, carbs, and fat? Yes, all the above. We need all three in our day, and it gets really detailed. That's why, when we talked earlier about what your plan is, it's going to look very custom depending on what your gender is, depending on what your total mass is, how much lean tissue you have on your frame, and what your exercise routine looks like. And so all of a sudden, it's a harder question to answer. We do know, in general, there are ranges for about how we balance all three macronutrients in a day. How much calories should come from carbohydrate, how much should come from protein and fat. But it would take, helpfully, to give you the best benefit would be to sit down with a sports dietitian, because your answers are going to be different. It varies athlete to athlete what they may want to take in, of what amount.
Yeah, and the whole method, like how you go about this, that will also change depending on what the person you're talking to wants, right? So it's not like everyone needs to like count calories or macros or, I don't know, other apps, right? That's up to each individual.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very up to the goals that you're wanting to reach, where you're at in terms of body composition at the very moment, and maybe for someone it's getting the basics down before they start, implementing nutrition around training. And so it can look a lot different, but absolutely, I think you're right in saying that it's gonna be a different answer for everyone. You and I have worked very hard at finding very specifically what needs might look like on your days. And that takes time. The longer a client can spend with a dietitian, the more custom it gets. But also, hopefully, the more confident you get about understanding how to build those meals and snacks, what your body utilizes best. But it will look very different from the next athlete that walks in after you. All very custom.
That I really believe in that. We are so different, so it makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much.
I love it. Yeah, we always love having you in the office, and we'll continue to support you as a sponsored athlete. Can't wait to see you continue your training and work with you through testing and also our sessions together.
No, I'm very grateful for you guys. Last thing, how can people get in touch with you and Dexa Body?
Yes, so wonderful. So the best way to get in touch with us is going to be through our website. That's where at dexabody.com you can explore the different types of nutrition packages we offer. Some are custom to sport and athletes. Some are going to be very wellness geared for people who want to use nutrition in other areas besides training for sport. So you can find a whole section about nutrition, who our dietitians are, what their backgrounds are, and what they specialize in. So you can find my schedule there.
Yeah.
You'd want to go to DexaBody.com, click on Nutrition Services, and there will be a panel for you to schedule a discovery session with me there.
So yeah, you can have Katie, my registered sports dietitian, as your dietitian. But yeah, also I get my Dexa Body scan through Dexa Body. I also do VO2 max testing, which helps me calculate my heart rate zones. And if you don't know, I train on heart rate, so this is extremely valuable for me to make sure that I'm training in those correct zones. And then I've also gotten my RMR test to help calculate my baseline of how much food I need. So definitely check them out because they have been a huge help to me. Thank you so much for watching. Please like this video and subscribe if you want to follow my journey as I'm working towards the Olympics in 2028. I will be continuing my comeback series. So I'm going to be talking about sleep. I'm going to be talking about supplements, like everything that I'm doing just to get myself to that shape I want to be in to run in the Olympics. I also have my story, which is 3 videos where I just tell you all about how I got into running. And then I'll also be doing some vlogs, sharing my entrepreneurial life, maybe talk a little bit about my move from Norway to the US, and yeah, just please let me know if there's any other videos you want to see. Every box company I found in the US was charging us like $9-10 per box, and I was like, are you kidding? That's how much, that's almost what our product costs.
I like this stuff.
And then as they sell, just keep me posted when you guys need refills.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you, when they Venmo you,
you probably
comments, do you want them to say Dexa Body?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is very helpful.